Patrick Johnston is ready and standing by. Let's go to the columnist with the Province and Postmedia. He was at the rink this morning. He was busy writing about Gillis this past week. And he had so much time this morning, he got home to Burnaby to be able to do the hit. We thought we were going to have you from the rink. He's trying to suck up with his Canadians hat and his Kitsilano secondary jumper. Well done, Peach.
I'm glad I didn't wear that Canadians hat because I have it as well. So we're all in unique
I need a new one.
Canadians
I will be honest. It's a little.
Yeah, you sweat in that one.
We can help you with that. We've got an in there with the C's. We can get you merch.
It's the kids' hat. No, anyway.
Now, what you've got to give me a Kitsilano secondary swag as well.
That's exclusive. I can trade you something. I have something. I'm sure.
Okay, all right. We'll barter off here. Break the tie for me on the poll question, because Robinson is connecting Manny to Toronto if Gillis gets the job, and Manny may very well be a candidate coming off that Calder Cup championship last year for a bunch of these other vacancies that are about to pop up. You tell me, should the Canucks promote him to the big bench before someone comes and poaches him?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're looking for sort of the long-term sake of the players, and given how this year has not gone well for Adam Foote, I think the Canucks would be wise to get that moving forward. Manny obviously showed his chops last year. This year was as trying a experience as you can get for a coach. And we'll have learned lots about culture and how to keep guys moving forward and all that. I think they would be wise to just move forward here. In the end, they made a bet with Foote and it didn't work. And, the concern, of course, is that you're now on to 7 coaches in 14 years, right? And that's just the overall remains chaotic. And a reminder,
but you can't fix history, Patrick.
No,
I
you
hear
can't.
that, and I just think,
no.
Okay, you've made a lot of mistakes in the past.
Yeah,
but that doesn't mean you should make another mistake. And for me, keeping this coach would be a colossal mistake. I mean, he's completely overmatched. That much.
No.
We're going to get to the Kevin Lankinen story, but yet another just palm to forehead. Everybody saw it coming, but apparently not Adam Foote.
Well, the point I was going to make was that the overall point is, remember what this organization has not been, and it has not been stable, and that remains a problem no matter who the coach is. And that is a lesson to be focused on, is that this organization needs stability, and it has not had stability in a very, very long time for one reason or another. So if there's anyone that could possibly bring stability to all this, maybe it is Manny Malhotra. As difficult as a task next year may be, or maybe not, given the sort of base quality of players that are already here, and the dream of adding a top 3 prospect and so on.
Are you buying the leaked stories that there will be very limited change in Vancouver? Do you really think that's possible? Do you think they could run this back and look anybody in the eye?
I mean, I think the truth is that they know they need some change. And at this point, I mean, I've heard all 3 options. Everybody, 1 guy, 2 guys, I guess all 4 options. Everybody stays. I still think there will be some change. There's just been enough that I've heard. I think there'll be some change. But in hockey, you never say never. I mean, it would be madness to roll everything back. That would be absolute madness to run everything back. But here we are.
Here we are indeed.
Do you concur with Mr. Robinson that you think Manny would be a strong candidate in Toronto if Gillis gets the job?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think so. I mean, there's a great deal of respect from all those guys. Obviously, Manny, there was the moment where those guys had to shut him down and say, we don't feel comfortable. And Manny kept on playing. So there was sort of that question mark. But I don't have any sense that there's sort of a lasting issue there. I think it would be a smart call if that's where Gillis ends up. And we'll see how that goes now that they've found the search group, which is not one that's tied to Gillis. We'll see where that lands. But but yeah, he'd be smart. He'll be a smart hire for anybody. Like, that's the thing, guys. Like, everybody sees the work he's done. He's well respected, and the league, in a league that's very small, and as I always say, it's oftentimes the worst high school you ever went to. Everybody knows everybody, for better or worse. Yeah, he's a guy that's got a deserved reputation, and I think we've been over that so many times. I think people understand why, and I fully expect he'll be a guy that'd be on lots of teams' radar for the reasons that the Leafs would want on him and the Canucks should want him, which is that he's a winner, he's prepared, he's been around the block multiple times, and he knows, fundamentally knows the game, and he's a teacher, and he's proven to be a guy that's ready to learn and get better at the coaching game.
You know what we're staring down the barrel of, though, gentlemen? Because we mentioned Brian Burke.
Decade of darkness?
Well, we're in that barrel. We're not staring down that barrel, Blake. We are in that barrel, bro.
The second decade of darkness?
The second, yeah. Ongoing darkness.
Oh, man.
The end of days. Burke went to Toronto and was an abject failure.
Yeah.
And by his own making. I mean, the Phil Kessel trade for Tyler Seguin, and was it Dougie Hamilton was the other first-round pick they wound up getting. He got impatient. He wanted to rush his fences and see if he can kickstart the rebuild, and he paid the price.
Never found a goalie.
Never, yeah. Poor Dave Nonis had to clean up his mess. Like, I did not think Dave that was a really terrible hand to inherit. I'm not sure there were many general managers who would have been able to get the Leafs out of that hole. And sure enough, Nonis eventually walked the plank. God help us all if Gillis turns around the Leafs, huh? Can you imagine this province and Canucks fans if Gillis pulls another magic trick like he did here in Toronto, and they're one of the best run organizations in the league?
Okay, let's go through this hypothetical too. With that in mind, let's say Jim Rutherford retired tomorrow. Who says no, Gillis or the Canucks?
Like if a call were placed?
Yes.
I think it's Gillis. I think he knows that he could set the most elaborate release clause, a $10 million buyout, the moment anybody from ownership steps in.
Calls me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
exactly.
I said earlier, as I said yesterday,
and they wouldn't abide by it.
If Francesco's still the chairman, there's not a chance.
Don't think it's a within 2 years. I mean, listen, within 2 years, he knows that he's dealing with what he's dealt with before. So it's never impossible. Listen, it's not impossible. It's just like the most unlikely of unlikely things.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to agree as well.
Tell us, it's funny because I saw your Gillis story.
Mm-hmm.
I read it today. And by the way, I'm a Vancouver Sun Province subscriber as well.
Thank you.
So,
thank you.
I read your story. It was beautiful and touching. I instantly texted, what do you call him, the senator from Victoria?
We used to call him the delegate from Oak Bay.
Yeah, the delegate from Oak Bay. I texted him. I said, I read PJ's story on you, a touchy-feely Gillis story. Never thought I'd see the day. And got a reply, there are some things even you don't know, Seacaris. For those who missed the story, he calls me Seacaris. He loves to mispronounce it. It was something about me seeing things back in the day. I don't even remember. Botch and I used to call him Lizard King because he can do anything, right?
Sorry,
have you not heard that before?
My camera bounced. No, I hadn't heard that one.
We used to call them Lizard King and Shopkeeper. Mike was Lizard King and Lawrence was Shopkeeper.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And Lawrence learned that because one day he picked up the phone and screamed at me, Matt, it is a 30 degrees Sunday in August. What could you possibly be calling about? And I went, Lawrence, Alex Burrows got in a fight in a ball hockey game in Montreal and beat up the other guy pretty bad. There was a pause, dead silence. Well, I'm just minding the shop. And from there, he was shopkeeper. For those who missed your Gillis story, tell them about it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's after Sedin night, retirement night in February 2020. You remember those days? And as truly one of the great nights of this, franchise's history, right? Like I went back and watched the ceremony. The ceremony was marvelous. Shorty was the MC and just rolling these faces out, right? Anybody and everybody who sort of meant something to the Vancouver Canucks in the previous 15 to 20 years. All the GMs, all the stars, Trevor Linden making his triumphant return. And wonderful cheers for everybody on the ice, the players, and all this stuff. Anyway, my assignment was to write about the ceremony. Kuz was writing about the game, and so we had a little sort of media session after the ceremony downstairs, and did some interviews, and talked to Naslund and all these guys. Anyway, after the game, I'm done. Like, the game's over. Kind of asked a few guys about what they thought, and had story filed. It's 10:15 or something, and I said, "What the hell?" And I texted Gillis, and I said, "Hey, should we get a drink? This was quite the evening." And he said, "Yeah, why don't you come meet me at the bar at the JW Marriott here at the park?" And so I went and sat down with him, and his wife Diane was there, and he bought a very nice bottle of wine, which I did not look at the price because it was the best glass of wine I've ever had in my life, and I did not want to know how much it cost. And while we're sitting there, just sort of talking about everything that had happened, fans were coming in because fans are going there post game. There's the park, there's the bar upstairs, there's the casino, there's everything, and they're coming in, and people started realizing that Mike was sitting there. It was sort of a table sort of near the hallway, pretty open space. People kept coming up to him and basically sticking out their hand and just briefly saying, "Thank you, Mike, for everything you did for us." And Mike was clearly, as I said, touched, humbled even. Like he took the thanks and was appreciative. And, people didn't linger, say, "Oh, what are you up to now?" People are just thanks. And, at one point I said, "That must be nice." And he kind of waved it off because he was, it was clear that he was surprised by the reaction because, the last year had not been easy. The last year when he was in charge had not been easy. And, and I think the reaction in the arena had caught him off, had caught him not by surprise, but I think he was anxious about that. And then I looked across the table, and there's Diane, and her face. I mean, we didn't even need a candle. Her face, she was so happy for him because it was one of these ones where she was just like, "See, Mike, people do like you," and it was a really quite amazing moment for a great, a guy that had meant a lot to this town, and people got a chance to do what they really probably hadn't been able to do before. And so, it was, probably, I don't know, couple dozen people did this. And then, of course, later on, the door, all of a sudden, there's this ruckus at the door. There's an entrance that comes in off the street, and you look over, and it's the gang. It's the Sedins and all their cohort that had come to the ceremony, and obviously they were having a good time. And in this bar also, by the way, over the booth there was Mark Crawford and Brian Burke, and of course they don't know as many of those guys that well, but the players that knew them, and the guys, most of those guys, obviously all those guys, I guess, knew Mike, and they came by and said, "Say, how you doing?" And a couple of guys did stay for a while, like Marcus Naslund sat down with us, and I talked to Marcus a couple of times by that point because it was the 50th season, so we were writing a lot of Canucks history stories at the province. And so I talked, and it was the first time I met him in person was earlier that evening. And so he sat down and talked with Mike. And of course, Mike, if you remember, was the guy that makes the decision that we are not re-signing Marcus Naslund. Like, he's going to have to go somewhere else. And this was his old agent. But it was just, old friends catching up. And then, Biaxi came by and so he had, sort of freshly retired and talking about what he was going to do. And they had quite the chat. And Mike said, "Go see the New Zealand All Blacks, learn about culture and stuff like that." And it was just this remarkable moment for a guy who's meant a lot to people. And of course, at one point, even Burke and Gillis, the famous, rivals, at one point, Brian had to go by to go to the bathroom. And he's like, "Oh, hey, Mike. Oh, hi, Brian." And but the point of it, tone of voice. But the point. We all know that tone of voice. In the end, it was a truly, like I said, a truly great moment in the history of this team, and it was like as someone who's been here his whole life. It was quite a remarkable moment, but it was quite a remarkable moment for Mike as well, and that's what I was trying to convey. So I'm glad that came across.
I never knew about the anxiousness, but I can understand it. Mike was always, well, Mike just doesn't trust easily. So there's an uneasiness until he gets to know you and you get to know him and you develop that rapport. So I can understand it looking back that, he was a little worried. How would the reaction be? But, the other thing about Canucks fans is that as much as they can be tough and they can be critical and they can be vocal, and certainly social media has amplified all of that for more recent Canucks. Can you imagine Twitter when Pavel Bure was holding out? Dear God. They forgive really easily. In fact, other than Mark Messier, I'm not sure there's many they don't forgive.
Well, here's the thing. Like moments like this, eras like this, guys, I think, as much as fans are disappointed when you don't win Game 6 or Game 7 to win the Stanley Cup, and as much as you're frustrated by the fact that Sedin's might have disappeared or Luongo underperformed in a few games and all that. And you have all the reasons as why they didn't win. And you're angry, upset, and all that sort of stuff. That is so far away from where they are right now. Like it feels like a lifetime of hockey building away from where they are right now. And it shows you how difficult it is to get to even that point, much less actually hoist the chalice. Yeah. Because how to get the team to losing Game 6 and Game 7 and being
that's 3/4 of the way up Everest.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And we're at base camp right now.
They're in the death zone.
If not underground.
Yeah,
we're
in San Diego.
Yeah, exactly.
They're in the death zone. Anyway, we don't need to read. Yeah.
But it is, right? Like, it gives you perspective as to how far along the road that is, and you didn't even win the cup. Yeah. And yet it's just so far away from where they are right now. So
you just need to get in, Blake. You just need to get in.
Oh, God. So what do you think if you're a betting man now? Do you think Gillis is going to get this Leafs job?
I mean, I think he has a good chance. It's pretty clear there's a real push from sort of the upper echelons of the insider world that they think he'd be the good choice for what they want, what they need. But listen, they've gone and hired a search firm that is also tied to a number of coaches and managers around the league. We're involved basically with putting Jim Rutherford in front of Francesco Aquilini here. So, there are obviously some very strong candidates. We've obviously heard Gillis. It's pretty clear Doug Armstrong would love it from what I've heard. Whether he can get out of St. Louis is a different question. Sonny Mehta, who's the sort of analytics guru in Florida, I think is certainly someone that people are tying to certainly the PBI choice. So yeah, he certainly has there's a strong case here, right? There's as strong a chance as anyone that he's been tied to in recent years. And probably the strongest, I guess, actually is the best way to put it. There's been Florida, there was Pittsburgh, there was Ottawa, and all those had pretty serious conversations, but I don't know if he was ever sure about any of those. And I think this is one that, as much as he has, I think, enjoyed being a grandfather and being mostly away from the game, my sense is the opportunity that is presented here is just one you can't pass up. So I think, he's, So
that's the thing. Any other market, I think you could make excuses that a guy like Mike Gillis wouldn't want to make that move. Yeah. But this is the chance to I mean, not that he's thinking about the statue outside the arena someday, but Vancouver and Toronto are those markets where
it's the resources available, right? Like that was the big thing here.
And that too.
Yeah, like initially here, like that was the thing, right? Like the Aquilinis at the time were like, yeah, what's it going to take? Let's do it. And they were mostly pretty amenable to the ideas they wanted to put forward. And clearly Toronto has the budget for it. Like they have an R&D department there, like a bunch of data guys and research guys and guys that just think about the game that were, was built up under Dubas and has had nothing to do, basically, from what I understand, this season, because essentially Treliving got rid of the sort of human performance department, which was essentially the sports science guys, just got rid of them and didn't know what to do with them. And so there's a group of guys, smart guys, sitting there looking for direction, looking for sort of tasks to be handed to them. And you want to talk about resources, like there's a resource sitting there waiting to be used. So like it's as big, and it is the biggest opportunity in hockey, and it would be a fascinating course, even with the sort of the demands of the board and Edward Rogers and all the kind of Toronto politics that get tied into the Leafs. I've told this story many times, but that one of the weirdest experiences of my life was the first time I was at Scotiabank and we're standing in the hallway, me and J-Pat, and you realize every single board member from Maple Leaf Gardens or MLSC is on the wall, and Jeff's staring at whatever person was responsible for getting rid of him in 2016. And he's just like, it was bizarre, but it's also an understanding of Toronto. It was a Bell person, and like honestly, and it's an understanding of Toronto, like just the way people are like, I was on the board, and that's like something that you're just like, what? Who cares? But like that matters in the sort of the world of Toronto.
I think Mike would do very well managing up there.
Yes, I agree.
I think he will do a lot better managing the outside world than he did in Vancouver, particularly at the end, because I think that's a big learning, and we've had that conversation. And I think he understands some of the errors of his ways there. But to me, that would still be a bigger question, because, it is just as much, if not more, than Vancouver in terms of outside noise. But we'll see. Okay, my friend. Yep. Well, thank you for joining. It looks like a lovely day in Burnaby. Are you coming to the ballpark tonight? Will we see you at the net tonight?
You know what? I hadn't even thought about it. Maybe.
All right. You're there. Stop on by. You know where our seats are. Yeah. Thank you, Patrick.
Right, guys.
Until next week.
Yeah.
Yep.